This January, we saw Sherlock Holmes and John Watson run off to fight crime for probably the last time. But the final series of Sherlock left a lot of viewers underwhelmed. Today we're going to be talking about the final problem with the final problem. Series 4 saw Sherlock facing his past with the sister he'd forced himself to forget. Eurus Holmes is a criminal mastermind who has been locked up for a majority of her life. She's even the one who convinced Moriarty to go directly after Sherlock. Through the final problem, she puts Sherlock, John, and Mycroft through horrific mind games. A lot of people are pointing to this as the major misstep of the series. I love Sherlock. It's one of my fandom true loves. I didn't dislike Series 4 as much as a lot of people, but even I know it had some major flaws. So here are the problems with Series 4. The final problem is a great final act that the first two didn't earn. Personally, I really liked the final problem. The issues with Series 4 isn't with that. It's with the Six Thatchers and the lying detective. They did a poor job of leading up to it. Sherlock has 3 movie-length episodes in order to convey its story. When we last left the show 3 years ago, Moriarty's image was appearing all over England. The danger was so high, Sherlock was brought back from a death sentence to take care of the problem. Then in the first 2 minutes of the Six Thatchers, the threat of Moriarty is pushed aside and ignored in favor of other stories, only to be brought up again in the last minutes of The Lying Detective. I love Andrew Scott, but I was fine with the idea of Moriarty staying dead. I actually think Eurus using his image in order to get Sherlock's attention is pretty cool, but you can't drop a bomb like that and have it peter out. This has always been an issue with Sherlock. Moffat and Gatiss do not know how to resolve their cliffhangers. The cliffhangers always get the characters into an impossible-to-escape situation, and then it's resolved by just ending. It's cheap and it makes people feel jerked around. In order to earn the final problem, the mystery of who was using Moriarty's image and their threat to Sherlock needed to be kept at the forefront throughout the first 2 episodes, only to be revealed to be Eurus in the final moments of The Lying Detective. Nothing that happened in the first 2 episodes really had an impact on the last episode, and it made a bad through line. I think The Lying Detective could be salvaged, and was for the most part a decent episode. But the Six Thatchers, that leads us to our second problem. The 100-year-old spoiler. This is a huge problem. There was absolutely, positively no reason to kill off Mary Watson other than to stay true to the original canon. However, staying true to the original canon is rendered completely moot when you're going to introduce Rosie Watson and Hannibal's sister. They made a complex, interesting character that they completely wasted just for the man pain. The only reason the death happened was to cause a rift between John and Sherlock, which was completely unnecessary and didn't last that long. Mary's true story was only brought forth halfway through his last vow. By killing her off in the next episode, it wastes the entire storyline. What was the point of having Mary be a professional assassin, other than using it for a shocking twist, and a way to ultimately have her written out of the show? Some have said that they had to kill off Mary because she was too competent, and the show isn't about a trio. They could have found a very easy way around that. Rosie. Mary doesn't want to go out and solve crimes because she's got a daughter at home that she needs to take care of. Mary seems to be a pretty level-headed lady. She's got to know that her kid needs to be looked after. Just have her decide, yeah, this part of my life is over, and this is what my life is now, and that's all right. She could have still helped out in a crunch, but it doesn't need to be more than that. Or you could tie Mary staying out of things to Eurus. Eurus could threaten Mary, and she and Rosie could have to go into hiding until Sherlock and John can handle the situation. It's not the perfect solution, but I would much rather have Mary have to go away for a while than to spend the whole series getting to know and like a character only to waste an entire episode dispatching her for man pain. And that brings us to the rift. Dear television shows, rifts between characters only work if you can have them last a few episodes. I can actually think of a bunch of shows this applies to. If you have characters that say they're not going to speak to each other, if you have them speak to each other in the very next episode, then there's no drama. With something like Sherlock, you can't convey a rift between Sherlock and John properly in 90 minutes. There was already a rift in The Empty Hearse, and it didn't work there. There were much better reasons to have the case in The Lying Detective. You didn't need to make it about getting John back into a game we had literally seen him in a week previously. Now we get to John. I will never be over this. I hated John in Series 4. There was an unnecessary drama of having John having an emotional affair with a random woman, while his wife was in the next room taking care of their newborn daughter. He was the absolute worst. I actually had a tag on my Tumblr of actual trash John Watson that I used throughout Series 4 because I was so upset about the affair. Then the issue is dropped the very next episode and excused away as not being a big deal, absolving John of his guilt. John Watson was the point of view character through the first 2 series of Sherlock. He is the everyman, the one we're supposed to identify with. While it's not actually out of character for him to do something like this, he was always portrayed as something of a skirt chaser. It does make him morally repugnant and turned a lot of people off. It's ultimately so pointless. John's affair is only brought up briefly in his grief over Mary, and Sherlock dismisses it right away as not a big deal. No one but John ever finds out the woman he was having an affair with was Eurus. Eurus's interactions with John do not play into her mind games at all. It was kind of just there to give Martin Freeman something to do while Benedict Cumberbatch and Amanda Abington played the main plot of The Six Thatchers. Characters don't have to be perfect Boy Scouts, but throwing something like infidelity in has to be played very carefully, and with Sherlock it just fell completely flat. And from one relationship to another, Molly and Sherlock. I love me some Molly and Sherlock. From the moment they appeared on screen together in Series 1, I wanted our cute pathologist to win over the consulting detective. Their relationship has grown and changed over the series, culminating in the heartbreaking scene where both Molly and Sherlock admit they love each other. This is one of the greatest scenes of the series, and both Benedict Cumberbatch and Louise Brealey acted the hell out of it. It was a scene that a lot of people seemed to misunderstand. Most reviews thought Sherlock was being dishonest with Molly again and just playing with her feelings. The scene works if you accept that Sherlock is in love with Molly, and there is evidence to back this up with their interactions throughout Series 3. When you look at the heartbreaking scene between them in the empty hearse, where Sherlock congratulates Molly on her engagement, there is a sense that Sherlock's feelings for her might have changed. It's then reinforced that Molly is still in love with Sherlock, saying that he is just her type. By his last vow, she's broken up with her fiancé. We also see she's an important image inside Sherlock's head as he struggles with being shot. Part of the problem is time. It's been 3 years since most people have seen Series 3. You can forget about the changes to Molly and Sherlock's relationship if you haven't watched the show in a while, because Molly only appears in 3 brief scenes in Series 4 before the gigantic moment. You have nothing to remind you of the fact that there's still a major question as to the status of Sherlock and Molly's relationship. There was also a lack of a coda on the phone scene. We see Molly coming into 221B with a big smile on her face, indicating everything actually did work out between her and Sherlock. But with that tense phone call, I would have liked to have seen a bit more. I would have been happy if Sherlock had just gone to her house and asked her for coffee. Something nice and ambiguous that calls back to the first episode, which they did a lot of in The Final Problem. But it tells us that they're going to be okay. Of course, everything in Series 4 relies on one thing working, and that's Eurus. There's nothing wrong with the idea of Eurus. There have been plenty of stories about a third Holmes sibling who is even smarter than Sherlock or Mycroft. I also thought she was very creepy in The Final Problem, and Sean Brooke performed her incredibly. But the character wasn't earned. There were 5 episodes leading up to a true confrontation with Moriarty, slowly building him up as an incredible mind and a worthy opponent to Sherlock. The hints provided from his last vow onward were not enough to justify Eurus not only being on par with Moriarty, but far surpassing him. It was clear that Moffat and Gatiss knew what they wanted to do as early as Series 3, but they didn't follow through on that in The Abominable Bride and Series 4. That's what it comes down to, the through line of the story. That is the flaw of Series 4. We are denied cohesive storytelling in favor of shocking twists that are only shocking because they haven't had the proper build-up. I think there are great things in Series 4, and if this is truly the end of Sherlock, I'll be satisfied with what I got. But I can't help but feeling there were some incredible missed opportunities. I'll be talking more about Sherlock and a lot of other TV shows and movies. Like, comment, and subscribe to see all of my videos. Also be sure to check out my podcasts, Return to the Hellmouth, a Buffy rewatch, and The Trash Compactor, Star Wars from the Female Perspective. Thanks for watching.